Hey folks, welcome back to the channel. Hey, if you've been following the channel for a while, you know I have a 7.3 Powerstroke 1999 Ford, and I have several videos on working on the engine and doing different modifications, adding the fast fuel system and stuff. But about a year ago, I decided to get a new truck, and I ended up going to a 7.3 from my 7.3 Powerstroke, but this is a gas 7.3. And I've had it a little over a year right now, and I just wanted to review a couple things on it, modifications I've done to it, and how it's performed over the last year. Again, this is the 7.3, as people call it, the Godzilla. Ford's calling it the Godzilla motor. It is a V8, pushrod V8. No overhead cam, there's no turbo to deal with, nothing like I had on my diesel truck. But it's been running just absolutely flawless. And it is an F350 XLT. I decided to just go with the XLT. I didn't want to spend another $30,000-$40,000 so I can have cameras all the way around and have some more stuff on it that I really didn't use. I could always just look out the window and see around the truck. And then the leather, I don't care about leather. Well, I bought this in Decorah, Iowa, my wife's hometown in Iowa, and they were really great to work with. Both Jay and Martin up there in Iowa. Yeah, so far very happy with it. Let's get into some of the modifications that I've done, and let's take a look at the Godzilla engine. So when I bought this, I could have went with the 6.7 diesel, another Powerstroke, but with all the stuff going on with the diesel emissions, I live in California 2.0, otherwise known as Colorado, and other things with the diesel particulate filter and the diesel extortion fluid that you have to buy to put in it, and all these other things. I decided to go simple and just went with a pushrod V8. But the thing is too, you open up the hood on a Powerstroke, and man, you can't even slide a pencil down in between it. There's so much stuff going on with heat shields and other things. And this is very simple. Hey, look, there's the spark plugs. Hey, look, there's the coil packs. Hey, there's my port injection, which is nice. On this motor, they put the injectors into the port, intake port, rather than having it into the cylinder itself with all the heat. So it's supposed to have a little more longevity. Hey, there's my throttle bottle. I could touch everything and work on everything right here. But the truck is an XLT, but there's a number of optional items that were added onto it. I do have the snowplow and camper package, which gives it a heavier duty front end, because I do have a 2-inch receiver on the front. I'll show you that in a minute. And the rear is heavier duty. These axles, I guess the rear end's a heavier duty rear end in this. It's a 373 gear, and again, it's the 10-speed transmission. But the 10-speed, the 140 transmission's the same one that they put behind the Powerstroke that's in behind the Godzilla, at least for this year, which is 23. But it's got the heavier duty leaf springs and all this other stuff on it. So I added a solenoid up on the firewall here. This is a starter solenoid for my old Powerstroke, but it's like a 400 amp ridiculous amount of current that it'll handle. But I ran a 10 gauge wire all the way back to an Anderson connector on the back end of the bumper that ties into my camper that I could plug in, and then just tied it right off the battery with a 30 amp fuse. I did add a battery tender plug on the truck because I do park it in the garage unheated for maybe a month at a time without starting it. So I wanted a way to tap and keep the battery charged. With the higher trim levels like the Platinum, the Lariat, the King Ranch, I think that about covers maybe even a Tremor, you get LED headlights on it. This is the stock halogen bulbs, incandescent bulbs, whatever. It's real simple to convert these to LEDs. You can order a kit that gives you both lights and also the fog for maybe a couple $300, and a good place to look. And I'll put a lot of the Amazon links and other links in the description that I can on all the stuff that I've purchased for this. Simple to do LED conversion. One good source is F150leds.com. Nick there does a nice job with accessory lighting and stuff. But it's real simple. Just pop in the new bulb and you've got LEDs, which are just performing great. Also, I added some emergency lighting onto the vehicle, so in the front I do have strobes, and then I added the F-150 Raptor lighting onto it. and they sell a nice little kit, just taps into the clearance lights and just put them here in the spaces. And then I also have up on top of the roof, I do have the cab lighting. That was an option on the truck, and I do have strobes here, clear strobes. I also switched out the third brake light, the bed lights back here, the LED, and I got those f150leds.com. and what's really cool is I found online, and I'll put the link in the description where I got it, CB antenna mount. It has a little spacer, so you basically unbolt the third brake light and pull it off, and then put the CB mount. It's like a cast mount, and it looks really nice up there. And then put in I think it's an NMO antenna for the CB radio, because I do like having a CB radio on the highway when traffic's backed up and we're traveling on I-10 or 95 or whatever. I can listen to the truckers and find out what's going on, how long the delay might be. It's a great addition. The other light that I did was I converted the license plate lights to LED, because they were burning like this yellow bulb from Ford. I don't know why they did that, but anyway, pop that out, and I've got LED lighting now too on that. And then here's the strobes going in the front. I did add those on because I do pull a 25-foot flatbed, and I might be loading a car up on it off the side of the road, so it's nice to have these lights. And then also in the rear, I added red and white emergency lighting too, because I tend to help out with different things. But there's the lights right there that are in the back windows. And this truck is a super cab. I didn't want the 4-door, and I also opted to have the long 8-foot bed rather than the grocery getter 6-foot bed or whatever's on the little trucks that everybody has. But I like having the long box on the back. But I like the look of the super cab rather than having another couple doors on it with the handles. But this opens great, and I think the 4-doors only, full crew cab is only 4 inches longer. But plenty of leg room. I've ridden adults in the back here, and I do have a seat cover on for the dog, and this seat cover could be for the crew cab or the super cab, and it has a hammock that comes out from down below that ties up on here to fill in this spot here. Don't use that too much. And what I like about the super cab doors too is they're open now, but then they go all the way open, so you have full access to the back, the load in the back, or put the dog up in there. And I did have a platform that I made that I put in here. I'll show you that in a minute. But going back to the lighting, here's the mounts, and I just bent a piece of steel and just sits down behind the seat here, and then I could always pull it out, unplug it if I want to put it in another vehicle, or if I get another truck someday. But that's how I did it. One thing I do like about the XLT is you get an actual chrome bumper. The painted bumpers look really cool, and they're really great on the upper trim levels to pay another 30, 40, 50,000 for. But the painted bumpers will chip all the stones hitting it and stuff, whereas this chrome holds up really well. My other truck, a 1999, a chrome bumper on it, and there's no chips, no nothing in it. If it were painted, it would have been really hammered up. The other thing I added is a bug shield on the front to cover up the paint from getting chipped up on the front here. And I've had the kind of bug shields that are like Lexan plastic that are flopping around. They got little pads, and they always bust up. And then I see guys, they want to have that Superduty logo in it, and you can get Ford's OEM bug shield, but it's just a piece of Lexan. It's flimsy. But I like this AVS, made by AVS here, and it sticks on, and it's like ABS, which matches all the other plastic on the truck. And I think it's called the Aero Skin, and I got this from realtruck.com. So, and again, I'll put some links in the description, but I think it adds to the look too. I like having the black rather than the Lexan looking plastic flimsy stuff up there, and it's really held up well. I put a protective film on the headlights. This big piece of plastic here on the XLT and XLs, I guess, have it. But it's a clear piece of plastic, clear bra, bug shield, whatever you want to call it. I got it off of Amazon.com, and it's made by 3M. And I just took a 8.5 by 11 piece of copy paper, made a template, laid it on there, traced it out, cut it out with a pair of scissors. And then you just take Windex, spray clean your headlight off really well, and then spray it with a Windex, and then put the plastic on, squeegee out the bubbles, and let it dry. And it is optically perfect. I can't believe how nice it turned out. I can't even see that it's on here, but if you look real close, maybe you can see the seam around the outside edge. And then I also had some pieces left over, and I put a little protective little triangle looking thing here on the corner of the fender also. The other thing I did is I got mud flaps on the truck that I added. I didn't get the OEM ones for, again, the higher trim levels, but I went with Husky mud flaps, which are working great, and that came from realtruck.com. Also added a running board, because I like having I don't like the motorized running board that goes up underneath, because in the wintertime here with the snow and the ice, they tend to freeze up, and I don't like the tubular ones with all the ice and snow coming up behind. And my other truck actually froze the door back shut from all the ice and snow coming up in between the tubular running board. But I put these on, they just bolt on simple. It took me like an hour, and it works great. And there's the logo, whatever that is. Looks like ORDRO, something like that. But again, I got that from realtruck.com. On the inside, I went with the Husky floor liners. I looked at the WeatherTech, but they were more expensive, and the Husky stuff is really good. So Husky liners for the both sides, and then Husky liner in the back here also, and they work great. Also, I saw this, I think this was also on realtruck.com, but this little stick-on piece of plastic, looks like bed liner. It goes on there and says Superduty. You can get it in different colors, but that's working good too, because I hit your shoe will tend to hit this and start scratching up the paint. Another thing I like about the long bed and the newer model Super Duties is the Chevy step that's on the side now. I think that's a Chevy step, or is that the one in the back? But anyway, they added this so I can get up in my toolbox. And then there's my gas filler. But hey, right there, I don't have a def fill because it's gas. Then since I have the 8-foot bed, I have a cap on my other truck. Topper or whatever, and I have a video on how to add a solar panel to it. It's got tons of views, but I like this because I wanted to go to a toolbox. So this is a UWS, I think it was, toolbox. I took the logo off the middle, but it's kind of a lower profile, and I keep all the tools and stuff in there. And got all my tapes and screwdrivers and sockets and towels, and then tow ropes and road flares, fire extinguisher, screwdriver, wrenches, all that stuff are up in here, and it works really well. Hydraulic jack, I have impact wrench up in there for taking lug nuts off. But yeah, I think it's UWS, and I think got that also on maybe eTrailer or for realtruck.com. And then I was watching Chad's video, Changing Lanes. It's an RV YouTube channel, and commented back and forth with him a little bit, and he recommended the XA-Tang bed cover, and it's spelled XATANG, and this is the 2.0 version, and it's a tri-fold, but this is about the only one I could find that Chad could find also, that it's the correct length. They have a 2-foot toolbox in here, so that worked out great. And how that works is up in the corner. If you can see this, just pull this down, pop up the little handle, and then just flip it up, and there's the little handle in case it was too dark, and that clips onto the little runner board here that's stock on the Ford, so there's no rails to add on or screw on with screws or anything like that. And then this goes up and then folds up, and then on the front there's a little tie down for going down the road if you have it open. So you just snap this in here. It's like a little tie strap, but that's worked extremely well. I also had the bed lined, because it didn't come that way with bed liner, but I went to Linex here in Denver, and they shot this heavy duty liner on here, which incredible job they did on taping off all the joints. Amazing. So extremely happy with that. Also, I was watching a video, and I think it was Big Truck Big RV down there, JD, who never shows his face on the video. It's just a talking hand all the time. But he recommended this carpet from eTrailer, and I was a little bit skeptical, but I got it. And if you've ever had a truck and you're climbing up in the back with your knees on the ribbing, it's killer on your knees, especially when you get older. But this is great, and I can just pull it all out, hose it off, whatever. And then I got the matching tailgate cover, which just hangs on with Velcro. But that works good too, to hose it off. What else did I do? The other thing is I added the lighting kit for inside lighting for the fifth wheel, which I do have, and I'll show you that in a minute, the B&W fifth wheel turnover ball. But I added this in, a little kit you get from eTrailer. And then the higher trim levels too also have a shock on their tailgates, again for another 40-50,000. But I added this on. This is from Amazon, and I'll try to find a link in the description, but it just bolts on existing hardware, and it adds a shock so when it goes down. Now, to cover some of the towing items, I have the stock Ford receiver hitch on the back, which is nice. On the 23 they modified and opened up the rings, holes bigger for your emergency chains. I did add an Anderson connector coming off of that solenoid up front, and that's to plug into the camper, because there's a lot of challenge, because I use lithium batteries with a DC to DC converter in my camper, and the challenge I had was the computer system on this doesn't recognize it as a battery or whatever it's doing, and a lot of people having issues. So I just ran a 10 gauge wire all the way to the back, plug it in on the Anderson connector. I've added a B&W turnover ball right there, and you just come up underneath the fender. And what was nice about the B&W is that, again, if you don't have the upper trim levels or didn't have that option with a hockey puck system pre-installed by Ford from the factory for a fifth wheel hitch, whatever, you can add a B&W, and it's just bolt in. I don't have to take the bed off. It just was pretty reasonable to bolt in, take out the spare tire, take off the heat shield off the exhaust, and then you could put it in. But so there's the B&W squeaking up in there, and it does have a pull bar, and you just pull the lever out. So just pull the lever out, and it's going to release the bolt, and it'll catch, and then you can go up in the bed. So now this is called a turnover ball. So you just grab the ball, pull it out of the hole, put it back in, and then release the lever, and you got yourself a gooseneck ready to go. And then here's the safety chain tie downs right here for your fifth wheel, gooseneck, whatever you're doing. And then put it back, just kind of take it over, give it a little piece of thing to hold on to here. Drop it back in the hole, and then pull that lever, and it's secured again. And then if I'm towing a fifth wheel, I have the B&W companion hitch, which works great. But underneath the bottom of it, try to get a look up underneath here, but where the turnover ball comes out, this actually has a shaft built into it, and it has the hole to lock in. So I just take over that turnover ball for the gooseneck, and then I slide this, and it goes right down in there, and then I release the lever, lock it in, and then I cinch it down with a tensioner bolt right here, and the fifth wheel hitch is installed. Really slick option from B&W. Also, to pick it up, I have an overhead lift in the garage, but I found this on eTrailer, and it's a lift for a fifth wheel hitch, and it just goes in the jaws, and then I have a hook, and then I have the ability just to lift it in and out. Or this hitch also too, I pull the pins here, it releases, and then this whole platter comes off, and then you just lift with the base to reduce the weight in case you're muscling it around by hand. Another thing I did is when I have, I pull an 8,000 pound trailer if I have my 25-foot flatbed car hauler on here. The truck tends to squat a lot. squat a bit, I guess I should say. But if you look at the helper springs on the heavy duty, and then I have the sway bars up underneath there too. That was part of, I guess, the camper package. And then the heavy duty rear end, bigger rear end in it. But these helper springs, the distance between here and here, the truck almost has to come down like 5 inches for these to engage. Now there are pads you can buy, they're going to give it a little bit of a space, but I've heard good reviews on the Timbren suspension add-on. So I went with the Timbrens, and I'll tell you what, right now when I'm riding down the road, it's nice and soft to ride, they're not engaged. But if I squat down maybe 1.5 inches, they engage. And try to get a view right there. So basically you pull out the bump stop, the hard plastic one that's in there from the factory, and you just bolt these in, and it works great. Nice easy ride with the weight on the back. So I'm real happy. I could have went with airbags. A lot of challenges with airbags. Cost, also you got to keep air in them all the time. And then going up and down with air pressure, then you got to mount a compressor, and just a hassle. But these are so simple to do, and they just work great. And one of the advantages going to 250, yeah, you lose maybe 500 or 600 pounds in payload instead of the 350, but the 250 rides nicer. The only difference, everything else is the same. The rear end, I mean, I haven't found any differences, but it's just the addition of one more leaf spring in here. So I have 1, 2, 3, and then I have the helper spring. But if you add another leaf spring in here, and I've driven the 350s, yeah, it's nice to have a little bit extra payload, which I really don't need. But the ride, you can just tell right off when you drive it, the difference with the 350. Having that extra leaf spring and the stiffness of the rear end, I just wanted to go with a little bit more comfort. The thing I did is I tried the WeatherTech, what do they call those, vent shades or whatever. But the problem was I had them and I tried them in the front here, and they kind of snap up underneath here, but the wind noise was just too much. I couldn't stand them, so I pulled them off, but I did keep the rear ones installed. So when it's raining hard, which it has on our trips, I can just pull down the window, our dog's back there, get some ventilation. And so I left the back ones in. So highly recommend putting the back ones in. If you look at my front license plate, it looks pretty standard stock, right? But I actually have a 2-inch receiver right there that I got on, again, eTrailer.com. But this works great, especially when I'm trying to thread a needle, pulling our camper back into the big garage, or my flatbed, which is on the other bay over there, which is like 25 feet long. But put the trailer on the front of the truck, and it's so easy to put it in place wherever you need it. So all I do is I just pull the license plate out, and it came with a cheap plastic one, but I went to Kurt and bought this one, Kurt 31002, heavy duty steel, and put my license plate on there. But yeah, it's great having a 2-inch receiver. And then I have the Anderson, I think I got this from Anderson, that has the 2 5/16 on the one end, and then I can flip it over, just pull the pin over, pull the pin out, and I can move it up and down or flip it around for the 2-inch ball. And there it is installed. But this works great when you're in tight spots trying to back a trailer up. The other neat thing is I can actually buy a snowplow and put it on the front, because they do make snowplows that are really strong, and it actually has the stem goes into the 2-inch receiver, and then you have a remote control, hook it up to the battery through like an Anderson connector, and then hit your remote, and the plow will go up and down. So could add a plow. I was just talking to my neighbor the other day. He's got a Dodge Ram. Yeah, Dodge Ram. It's just a Ram 3500, and I said just put a 2-inch receiver on the front and you can do a plow. But he's not using it for commercials. He's going to do his own driveway, so something a little bit lighter would be fine. But that is a 10,000 pound receiver on the front, and it was pretty easy to do. You take the front bumper off, which is just a couple bolts on either side here, get a friend to help you lower it down, and then bolt it up onto the frame, and then put your bumper back on. You do have to cut the valance a little bit here to make room for the notch where the receiver pops out. This is the platform I made for our dog, and I just took some 3/4 inch plywood and put a piece of carpet on the front, but put 2 legs on it with a couple angle straps, and then a 2x4 across the back, and then it just goes up into the back seat. So here's the platform installed. A little bit of dog hair on here, but works out great. We just did 9,200 miles. We went from Colorado down to Texas to South Florida, all the way up to Bar Harbor, Maine, and then back to Colorado again. So over 3 months, 9,200 miles, and she rode back here, even out on the ocean on a ferry boat from Cedar Island to Ocracoke, and then Ocracoke to Hatteras on the Outer Banks. But even on the ocean, she rode back here. Up. All right, Josie likes it back here on that shelf. She's up high. She could just lay down. She can look out the window on the trip. Mama can take care of her right here. She puts her head on the rest here once in a while. And I did get this cover from Amazon. I'll put the link in the description for this too. It comes in different colors, but kind of saves the fabric, and it just easily cleans up. So I do like the cloth seats in the Fords. I had leather before, and I actually like the cloth, and they did a nice job. And this is pretty much stock, I guess, and then the vinyl is probably in the XL model, but as an option, it does have power seats on both sides. And so let's take a look at the cockpit here, what I have going on. So this is the XLT interior. I guess the XL is the same, but if I wanted to spend another 30,000-40,000, I could have got the bigger display and the big display over here for the gauges. I don't need all that stuff, but I like this one actually because I have a place for my phone to sit down, and then I could wire in a pad charger. That'd be kind of cool. So let's go ahead and fire up the truck, fire everything up. But this is fine. I got all my gauges, all the temperatures, all that stuff. And then I have my tow mode switch right down in here, so I can go into different normal tow haul. I do love the tow haul. Again, this 10-speed transmission in my other Powerstroke 7.3 truck, it has a 3-speed in it, but this is 10 speeds, and I think that's what I like most about the truck, is that 10-speed R140 transmission. And what's really cool is when you're in tow haul mode, if I'm getting off of an exit or going down a hill, even solo without the trailer on the back, if I touch the brake, just tap it lightly for like 2 seconds, it'll downshift 2 gears, hit it again, downshift 2 more. I love that, save the brakes. But I got the screen here and it works good. Down here below I have the CB radio. Again, I showed you the antenna on that, but this is really compact. I'll put the Amazon link in the description, but you see this is so small, just puts up in there, gives that great audio. But again, the only time we really use it when we're stopped in traffic. I want to hear what's going on the highway. It works well, and I mounted the little the microphone over here. The other thing I like is having the seat in the middle in the front in case we're riding another person, whereas the bigger high trim levels have that big honking console in the middle. I like having it open. And to add some cup holders and some little tray for knickknacks, chewing gum and stuff, I added this little tray divider. You could buy these anywhere at the auto parts store, but I did trim it down a little bit and it fits right in there. That works great. Then coming up here, I have a TPMS on the truck that comes with Ford on the truck tires, but it doesn't have the ability to have it on the camper. I guess there is a way of doing it, but I didn't want to monkey with it. So I use the TST, kind of what the truckers do, the 18-wheelers. And I do have a separate video on my YouTube channel. Check out my playlist for all the other solar stuff and all the hot rod builds I've done with Cummins diesels, Powerstrokes, and that sort of thing. But anyway, I do have a separate video on this, and this works great. I have little sensors, and I put them on the truck tires, and then I have my trailer with my tandem wheels in the back, and I just screw the little sensors on there, and then it picks up everything. Then next to it, I'll put the Amazon link in the description for this. And then also I have the Garmin RV, I think it's $795, not sure about that. But it is the RV version. You see there's a little trailer with a car pulling it. That's cool, kind of cool. But this thing is amazing. I mean, I had just a regular old GPS before, but this, I could put in my ways, my stops I'm going to be making. So we went all the way to Florida. I had all of my trips already loaded. Just take it on the kitchen table, sit down there with a cup of tea or coffee, and just enter in all your points. So when you get in the truck the next day, the next stop, it's automatically in there. You just choose where you're going. And the really cool thing is it has all the KOEs already loaded in here, all your national parks, which we stay at quite a bit, planned RV parks and so on, public campgrounds. If I go into the pre-saved, if I go into the route planner, hit that, and I go into the different routes I have planned in here. So Torrey Trails was basically near Sebring, Florida. We drove from here, Colorado, down to Torrey Trails. So if I select that one, it's calculating the route. So it pulls up my route, and I've got all of my points with the flags in, all the stops we made along the way. So if I hit one of those, Caryville KOA journey and Caryville journey in Texas, then I could say go and it'll take me right there, but all my trips are planned. And then if I come back here, I had another one we did from Torrey Trails up to Gettysburg. And there's my route all the way from Sebring, Florida, roughly Ocala, all the way up to Gettysburg in Pennsylvania, up all the way up the East Coast. But I did fabricate a piece of metal to go in here. There were a couple screws from Ford. They sell different kits, but I didn't like it. But so in my fabrication shop, I just bent a couple pieces of steel and I mounted this onto the dash. And then I used a little distribution USB port thing here that worked real well, and tied it into my upfitter switches, which was an option on the truck. So I could turn off, that's my CB and so on. And then here's all the power for up in here. And then my emergency lights are on the last switch. So it's called upfitter switches. The other thing I did is add a Banks pedal monster onto it. So I added the gauge right here. Again, the upper trim levels, another 30, 40,000, you actually have a knob right here so you can back a trailer up. Well, I know how to back a trailer up. I don't need a knob here that turns the steering wheel the opposite direction. So anyway, I had this hole here, so I popped this plate off and I mounted the Banks gauge right in here. And the pedal monster, I could set the pedal response how I want it, or you could just use this gauge to read off your ODB2 port and just give you different diagnostics. But I added a pedal monster, which gives me this screen. And if I accelerate, so basically it's amplifying the throttle going to the computer, which it just wakes up the truck. And then if I add, I can add different levels. I kind of leave it down here on the lowest setting on sport mode, first step, and go into different displays. And then I can look at different parameters, temperature, miles per hour, the load on the motor. If I accelerate it, my battery's at 14.5 volts. And I know there probably is a way to get to some of this stuff through the menu selection on your dash, but I just like having this little gauge here. I'm an old hot rodder, so I like doing that way. And if I hold the button down, it'll just switch to different parameters. You could program this any way you want it. But so that's the Banks pedal monster that I have for the accelerator, and then this is the iDash. It's just a standard 52 millimeter gauge, and I was able to cut a hole with my hole saw right in that plate and mount it right there. And I really like having that on a trip. On occasion, I'll look down and we're changing different parameters, but I'll put the Amazon links in the description, and I'll try to for that also. And again, I build hot rods and that sort of thing, so I like a little bit of rumble to the exhaust. So I did pull off the Ford exhaust, which was probably 400 pounds of different stuff with resonators and all this other stuff. And I got and put on a MPRP, and I'll put the link in the description too for their website. But it just gives the truck a little bit of a rumble with the 7.3 big block. It just sounds great on the highway. I just like that little bit of rumble. So between that and the pedal monster on the Banks that I just showed, the two just wake this truck up. I've had people drive it and say, holy crap, compared to a stock truck. I tend to change the oil myself, and I'm changing the oil on this Godzilla every 5,000 miles. Ford says, computer says, I can go 10,000 miles on an oil change. I'm just old school, so I'm doing them every 5,000 miles. But when I'm on the road, I like being able to change the oil, and I have a way of doing it without spilling a drop. Now, I've seen some videos, guys changing oil on the 7.3. They pull the plug out, it's squirting across the room, and then they go to take the oil filter down, which is a vertical mount, and pull the oil filter done, it's coming down all over their hands, and then you're draining the oil passages up above, and it's even more oil than what the filter has in it, and it's just all over the place. First thing I did on this truck is I changed the oil at 1,500 miles, and then I'm doing 5,000 mile interviews. Now if I'm around the country, like the last trip I made it to Pennsylvania and I needed to change the oil, so I actually did it in the KOA campground with the camper. I have one of these Milwaukee Packot kits, and I have it equipped with everything I need to do the oil change on this truck. So the other beauty of going to the gas motor is I only have 8 quarts of oil, 530. I'm not doing like 16 quarts of 1540 like in the other truck, and so on. So it's a lot easier to change the oil. This has no fuel filter in it, which is amazing. Doesn't even have a dipstick for the transmission on this 140 transmission. So the only thing I need to do is change the oil and put gas in it, and again, no def, and that's it. Maybe change the air cleaner once in a while. But in the kit I have everything I need, and I did put a valve instead of taking the oil plug out, so it's not shooting oil all over the place. So there's my oil plug. I did replace it. And I went to a Fumoto valve, F-U-M-O-T-O. I'll put the Amazon link in the description. But it's really slick, and I've been using them in all my vehicles probably for a decade now, my Jeep, my other truck, and so on. But you have a little valve with a little keeper key in it for safety. Pop that out, open up the valve. But first of all, you put the hose in, and it just has like a brass or plastic end on it. You just snap it over there, put the other end into a drain jug. And I don't even have the big drain pan anymore, so I just carry this. This handles what, 12 quarts, and I only have 8 quarts going into this when I change the oil. And then I went to Mobil 1 synthetic, so I've got 5 quarts there, and I got 3 1-quart containers. Fits right in here along with my Mobil 1 oil filter. What else? And then I have the little thing from Advanced Auto or wherever, AutoZone. Instead of putting a strap on, I just have this. It fits it perfect, and then I keep a 3/8 wrench and a little extension on there. The other thing I have is a hammer. You probably wonder what in the heck's a hammer for, but since the oil filter is vertical, what I do is I have a center punch, a sharp one with a sharp tip on it, and I stab the bottom of the oil filter. So what I do is I put this funnel in the jug, so it gives me a little bit extra area. Drive it up in there with a hammer, and go through 2 levels or 2 layers of steel. So you hit the first layer, and then you got to poke through the second one, and then just poke it up to about that point, wiggle it around a little bit, widen the hole up, and then have your funnel with the jug underneath, and just slide it right out and let that stream drain for a while. So it'll drain the filter, but most importantly, it drains all these passages that are up above full with oil that are just come gushing out. So just let it drain for a couple minutes, a few minutes, and unscrew the filter. And I keep a Ziploc bag in here somewhere. Right there's a Ziploc bag. So I put the filter in there. I go into a campground or wherever I want, I can change the oil without spilling a drop. And I haven't seen any other YouTubes doing it this way. And I do like the Chevy steps, I call them. Ford copied it off of Chevy, I guess, or somebody. But this is great to get in and out. And up in here in the top, there's actually a handhold, so just hold on to that, put your foot up in there, boost yourself up. And I've seen, again, with the high trim levels and this and that, there's a ladder that comes out of the tailgate that I've watched, and I know people that have it. They never use that ladder that's in the tailgate. If you notice, the Superduty is recessed, stamped into the tailgate in the back. And I found, I think it was on eBay, this little vinyl sticker, heavy duty, precision cut, laser cut or whatever, and they just peel off and just stick in there to make it stand out a little bit more. Also, the where it says 7.3 Godzilla on the front. I know all the diesels, and you got the high performance, the high output diesels, they all have the little plate up there on the front. When I bought the truck too, the body color's white, but up underneath the fender well, for the rear, this is all white up in here. Just look like junk. But again, the upper trim levels that you pay another 40 or 50,000 for have a liner in. But I got this liner from Husky, just like the mud flaps and the floor mats. Make a nice product. I didn't have to take the tire off or anything. It's just a piece of molded plastic that snaps up in here, and then you have 2 screws, if you can see them right there, that go in and hold it all in, but stays really clean. Just hosing it off. This is my dash cam. Works really well. I have a dash cam in all my cars, but I've had a number of units in the past, but this one seems to work the best so far. It's made by Rove, R-O-V-E. I'll put the link in the Amazon description. But the image quality is great, and then also the night vision is really good too. It just lights up in total darkness the surroundings really well. The main feature I like is that when it records video incidents, it has a GPS sensor in it, and also has a shock sensor in it for a G sensor, that if it's in a collision, it'll save the video clip, and also has GPS locating and stuff built into it. But it has a memory card on the side, little micro USB card, but it also has Wi-Fi built into it. So right now I'm connected to the Wi-Fi on my phone, and yeah, so if I have an incident, I can go down to the bottom of the screen here and then look up recorded video, local video, or I go to live video. And it's about the only unit that I was looking at that could do this. Rather than pulling out memory card, if you have an incident, you just look up the recorded video, pop it onto your phone, and then you can send it off to authorities, whatever. But works really well. So the regular way you power up a dash cam is they give you about 100 feet of wire with a cigarette lighter plug on the end, and you got to run it up through here, around the top of the windshield, down, and then you got to find a cigarette lighter plug to plug it into. But there's an easier way of doing it, and it is a company called Dungar, D-O-N-G-A-R, dungar.com. And they sell a little splice kit, like 2 connectors, and it spits off a USB connector that gives power to the dash cam. So if you have a powered mirror, like a self-dimming mirror, you have a cord coming into it, like you can see that right up in there. It comes down into the mirror. When you take this cover off, there's a plug up in there, and they give you the proper plug for your make of vehicle. In the case I ordered the Superduty, and it just, you unplug it, plug this in between, plug the connectors back up, and it gives you a USB connector. And then they give you a bunch of different little pigtail to go to USB-C, which I think this is what this is. But it's a really slick way, really convenient. I know I just did it on my wife's brand new 2025 Subaru Forester, and got the appropriate kit from Dungar, and it didn't take me long. And then I powered up her dash cam that way also. So I'll put the link in the description. The new Super Duties, I really like these mirrors. You have a blind spot mirror on the bottom that you just see right down the side of the truck. I mean, there's my finger like right there, even with the mirror, and I can still see it. So it has a great view. Also, the upper mirror is just huge. But the nice thing is too, I guess this was an option, I can telescope out the mirrors and bring them back in again. And then I can also fold them somehow. There we go. And you can even go into the computer on the truck and say, every time I put it in park, put the mirrors in. So if you have a tight garage or a parking spot you normally park in. So a lot of people ask me, how does this truck perform? I mean, I have a diesel Powerstroke, the old 7.3, and go into the 7.3 gas. And I tell you what, after driving this, I think 11,500 miles, of which almost 10,000 of that was pulling an 8,000-pound trailer, I think this actually has more power than my Powerstroke did. But again, the 10-speed transmission, I think that's a lot to do with it. I'd like to take my 7.3 Powerstroke and bolt it in the front end of this 10-speed 140 transmission and see what it does. But overall, the performance has been great, nice and quiet, comfortable ride. I do like having the bigger Super Duty rather than the 150 that you see everybody driving to the grocery store. But they do pull some trailers with them, I'll give you that, I'm just joking. But I've seen quite a bit of 150s pulling some stuff that probably they shouldn't have been pulling. But I like having a heavier duty frame, bigger truck, and the weight ratio between my 8,000-pound trailer, this truck's probably 7,500 pounds, it's very well matched, and you do notice that pulling. But overall, I don't miss the turbo. I miss the turbo sound, that whine, that whistle sound on my Powerstroke when I'm driving this. But I've pulled this at high altitude. Right now we're at about 7,000 feet in elevation. When I go up to the mountains, I've gone over Berthoud Pass. Folks know where that's at, up in the mountains, and that's probably 11,000 feet. But it performed flawless. I mean, going up over the hill, I'm climbing like 20% grades, 15% grades, climbing at 11,000 feet with 8,000 pounds on the back, and my pedals only, geez, maybe a third of the way down. So I had plenty of power going all the way around the country. Never had an issue with not enough power anywhere. Keeping up highway speeds and then still having reserve power of like a half a pedal left. So very happy with this. And again, I think it performs better than my old Powerstroke, but then again, my Powerstroke was 1999. Let's go ahead and wrap it up. If you have any questions on stuff I did or stuff I did wrong or whatever, please leave it in the comments. I'll get back to you within a day or two. But check out my playlist, all my other crazy projects so far on my playlist. I think this would be the 89th video.